Hello and welcome to Chat and Shit about the Naiad Cup. I helped choose the name for this one. I don't know how to pronounce it. Cal, do you know? Do you want to give us a pronunciation?
I'm guessing it's Naiad.
Okay, fair.
I believe it's Naiad, going from the mythology anyway.
Any advances on that, Cal? Fair enough. Well, I'm joined by Dan, Cal, and Welsh Cal, young Cal and Welsh Cal. So just to help us differentiate. Not that Welsh Cal isn't young also, but young Cal is younger than me, which seems to be quite rare in this community. So, yeah. How are we all?
Good, Matt. Yeah, really well. I'm glad that I know this may be a sore subject, but glad that Ember's sort of drifting away into the distance.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a month where I won't see Gliscor again. You know, that might be nice. See you later, Slygar.
It's probably the bias, but I've really been enjoying Ember Cup, to be honest. I don't know. I think all my games, well, at least I haven't played very much in solo tournaments, for example, but all the games I've had so far have been really close games and really mostly challenging. I think not using Pilot Wine has helped because I find that's the RPS mon of the core. But really looking forward to Naiad, though. It's got a lot more mons that I'm more comfortable with. It's got a lot more variety, a lot more bug types.
When you said more mons, I was like, so more bugs then, more bugs.
Yeah. Well, I'll not ask Welsh Kelly's opinions on Ember, given that he's sat out the month. But yeah, it's funny.
I've played one tournament.
Okay, my apologies. But it's funny that when you in what, sorry?
Against some locals.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. That's cool. So,
that was it.
He played his dog, he played his gran, he played his gran's dog. Crazy Jeff who sleeps on the bench in the park. All the big hitters.
All the big hitters in Flintshire, yeah. That's...
I've got a 5-0 to my name, I'm happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, having had the break so long, like you forget how fast the month goes. You're just sort of 2/3 of the way through it. So looking forward to now, Cal. Watch Cal.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
Are you looking more forward to Naiad?
Oh yeah, definitely. One of the reasons I've saved all my rounds, so I can just a whole month. Happy days.
We'll go to your pick first then, mate, because I know you're excited to talk about this one.
Oh yes. Okay, so my pick is Pokedex number 97, the Hypnosis Pokemon, or the Cocknose Pokemon, Hypno. And it's exciting to see it actually viable again somewhere, because it has been a while, I think, now. I think everyone knows how to play Hypno at this point. It's
tap.
Yeah. you run the shadow, you tap, you throw a shadow ball or something, profit. Happy days. The shadow ranks much lower than the normal in this meta, which I'm not really sure why that is.
It might be
always better.
It might be a lot of the bug types have X's, which is a weak move. So it might be that with the shadow, it becomes a 2-shot rather than a 3-shot. That's just my initial guess.
What I like about it is just like a Swiss Army knife Pokemon. You can just pack whatever moveset that fills the holes in your team, whether you want 2 nukes with it or double punch, but I think most of the time you're just looking for that big heavy confusion damage. There's a lot of things that will really cripple Hypno here, which is a bit of a problem. But outside, if you can protect it well, it can do nice damage, I think.
So, go on then. This is my issue with Hypno here, is the moves. Because typically you run Shadow Ball, typically, don't you? And then you put either Fire Punch from the punch or Ice Punch, or maybe on the Shadow you go Double Punch. But yeah, go on.
So I've simmed pretty much every possible move combination, Shadow, non-Shadow. And I think Thunder Punch, Shadow Ball for this one.
Okay.
Because, again, it depends how you play it. It's not like a zero shield mod. Well, it's more like it's a zero shield mod as a closer, obviously, but outside of that, you've got a bait, Shadow Ball, or whatever. But if you have I think it's a 2 confusion lead in the zeros, which if you can farm something down, it's not inconceivable. It beats, I think it's 80% of the core meta, just Shadow Ball it to oblivion. So it's a nice hefty closer. I think that's where it stands out for me.
Do you, just because you've said Shadow Ball Thunder Punch, obviously, I mean, I think I've done a couple of games of this meta just with messing about with different things and stuff like that. But do you not think double punch with the shadow here is the way to go just because of all the bugs and things lying around? Because the bugs that you're tending to get are the electric bugs like Charger Bug and things. You're going to want something that's going to be able to hurt them. As we said before, the X-Scissor damage, being able to do the 2-shot with the X-Scissor. Your Thunder Punch isn't going to do anything to them, and you're not going to reach the Shadow Ball before they necessarily reach 2 X-Scissors. So having that Fire Punch dynamic, wouldn't that be useful? I mean, you've simmed
No,
his death, as you
no,
said.
I agree. But Thunder Punch fits my initial 6 much better than any other combination. So I found a nice little line of 3 that I'm happy to sort of try out at some point, which on paper looks pretty solid. So very happy.
What are your thoughts on the moves, young Cal? I've got some thoughts, but I'll come to you first.
But specifically Hypno, I mean, yeah, Thunder Punch is always amazing on it, really, when you look at the coverage that Electric provides you. Specifically here, the Water Flies just look phenomenal. The common thing with Shadow Hypno is typically, I mean, in this meta, you'll probably see Shadow Ball for all the opposing psychics, but typically you see that Thunder Fire Punch double upset, but that leaves you really weak to, say, the more flexible ground waters that we've got here. So you've got stuff like Quagsire, which, I mean, you can probably see from this meta, it's very similar to how Glacial played out in last season. And Quagsire was a big hitter there with its ability to close out games with a one shot down. And I think as good as Pokemon like Swampert are, and as good as Pokemon like say Whiscash as well, with the ability to hit with a Blizzard, I think it's going to be amazing pressure against like some of the top ones we'll see, like Altaria and Komodo, although you can probably might bomb that down. I think Ice Punch looks good because dragons seem very safe. Fairies are banned, so their hardest answer is gone. There's some steel types, but most of them don't have the greatest stat product or can't hit, say, flyers, for example. I think you're really going to get a lot of value out of the Ice Punch, just because there's so many things it can hit for neutral, and then some of the scariest Pokemon within the cup take super effective damage from the ice.
See, I think the discussion here is with one of the I agree. Shadow Ball has to be there. Otherwise, you get walled by. Well, you get walled by the psychics, but you got nothing to make them stare really. But I think this is a really bulky meta. Like when you see some of the things that are top there, you've got Altaria, you've got Gelatin, Miltank, Greedent, Walreign's going to be good. Even Lugia is high rank. Lugia is bulky. Whiscash is pretty bulky, if I remember rightly. Dewgong. You're always going to be, if you're relying on the punch, you're always going to be not doing much damage at all, unless it's super effective. So my argument would be, and I've done no sims, so I might be wrong, rather than being really good against a third of the mons and being shite versus the other 2/3, why not run Psyshock and make the most of the bulk that Hypno has and be really solid versus everything? You've not got that immediate shield pressure versus Altaria, because regardless of what punch you've got, the Altaria is probably going to shield the first one because they don't know you haven't got Ice Punch. The Pelipper's probably going to shield the first one because they don't know you haven't got Thunder Punch. So yeah, especially when you come up versus stuff like Miltank and Greedent, which are really bulky, you're going to want some solid damage output to hit those things. I think Psyshock, really for the first time ever, is It's really viable.
Psyshock's ETM, isn't it?
It is. It's legacy. Yeah, it's legacy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people's availability of that is. I mean, most PvPers have got tons of ETMs. I was talking earlier. I've got 25 now. I did have 26 earlier tonight. So I'm sure people do have them, but it's one of the moves that people won't have. I mean, I have one, but I think it's like a 98% hypno that's in great lead level. But yeah, it's not certainly, certainly IV wise, it's not the best. Then again, I think it was PvP. Steve once said to me that IVs don't matter on hypno. It's not what it's there for. It does what it does, and that's it. Callum's looking at me going, IVs matter on hypno.
No, not that.
No,
It's
I meant
more-
Welsh Cal Solly. I went, oh, this is gonna be confusing.
This is
Gonna
good.
be
I think IVs always matter. People who tell you otherwise are liars. Always.
Especially on bulky mons. Like it now.
Do you think they matter on hypno? Really? Because hypno's doing.
If it gets you,
only doing
a
what
break
it
point,
does.
if it gets you a bulk point against new Shadow Claw, then yeah, that's probably important.
I'd run a slight attack weight always for the mirror, because pressuring the shield first is always super good for hypno mirrors when you've got the Shadow Ball threat. I was more thinking, I think Psyshock is actually a really interesting shout from the fact that it will do significantly better against, say, the normal types, which it can't hit with Shadow Ball, and you're not quite at the Focus Blast. You're still a bit away from there, so they're going to feel no fear, no shielding. So then when you hit with a decently hard-hitting Psyshock, you'll probably flip switch in a lot more scenarios than you expect it to. And Dark types are banned, so that's one of the only resists to Psyshock. All the Psychic types you're going to hit for super effective with Ghost, and then, well, almost all of them. You won't for, say, Orangaroo. But then for Steel types, you've only really got the Bug Steels, which are going to annihilate you anyway, and then Jirachi and Bronzong, which you can hit back with the Shadow Ball, and then Empoleon. So really, it's so limited in what you're actually walled by. But Psyshock's actually a really interesting shout. I quite like that suggestion.
And I think as well, so I know this is something we briefly touched on, young Cal, that if you're wanting the Thunder Punch or the Ice Punch for specifically to deal with something like a Wall Rain or an Altaria, you could even look at Bronzong and use the resistance from ice damage and dragon damage and go Psyshock. And what's the dark move it gets?
Paper.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it depends on your team, and if Thunder Punch really fits your team, then sure. But I think as a generalist, I think there's interesting options from many confusion users here for that matter. I think when they're trash is pretty handy. Yeah.
I think the Psyshock, I think, works much better on the non-shadow. From what I'm looking at.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, just have a look at what other confusion users are. There aren't a lot of confusion users really. You're looking at Bronzong,
Diachi.
yeah, Teeny,
Big Teeny, yeah.
I sort of see Hypno as the duct tape that my dad gets out anytime something breaks in the house. Just like, oh, there's a bit of a crack here, a bit weak here. Just stick that on there. Stick whatever moveset you want that you're lacking coverage of. So I think we probably won't see a lot of Psyshock, mostly because it's an elite TM, partly because people have probably transferred all their spare Hypnos by now because they're like, oh, I'm never going to use this again. Not Callum, obviously. He still has all 12 of his.
I think I've got 18 Hypnos, I think. All double move, ready to go.
That is insane.
All with the same CP. Just watch yourself.
Yeah. No, that's. Yeah, I think I think you're right. I think for the first time in a long time it is actually quite good. I don't think it's been good since
Prismatic.
Prismatic, yeah, that's the one. And I think back to that, and I think that's
the metal.
Yeah, You would think that as a hypno connoisseur, right? But, think back to those hypno versus Snorlax matchups in Prismatic and think, oh, how nice would Sideshock have been? Because Snorlax is going to be good, but when I look at the other normal types that are available, I think Green and Miltank stand out a bit from them. Having that Sideshock might just be able to.
What does Hypno give you that the other Psychics doesn't? Because I mean, you've got some big Psychics here. You've got DD, you've got Mew, you've got Swoobat, you've got Gallade.
Hold on. Did you try to lump Swoobat with Deoxys defense? And
Same thing, mate. Same thing.
It's viable. It's viable.
Oh no, it's certainly viable.
I was just naming psychic types with different elements, and for all we can all laugh and joke about Swoobat has its place at times.
It's got a debuff. That's enough.
The reason I put it in that bracket is because it's a confusion user as well. Similarly with Gallade, maybe Mew and Deoxys have different roles. I mean, shadows are allowed here. You could go Shadow Mewtwo, which
you
could.
You've caught me out there.
I think specifically what Hypno gives you is a shield, which is that it will always demand a shield. Same thing with another one that I'll talk about later. But it's the only Pokemon where it will make it's one of the only Pokemon in this cup where your opponent will stare at it, let the shield timer count down to the last second, and then click it out of panic. So, a lot of great Psychics in this meta that you could easily use over it if you don't feel the need for a Hypno. But
nothing more fun than Hypno.
None more fun. That's true.
Baiting a Fire Punch, throwing an Ice Punch straight after.
Yeah, but you've waited about 10 minutes to throw any of these. This is the problem with Confusion. And it's my big problem with Confusion is it's so slow. And, as you've got Mew just slashing with Shadow Claws or something like that, or Deoxys punching its way through things,
Deoxys, don't get me started.
I don't think Deoxys has a place here. I'm just going to say that. I think I'd probably run Victini over Deoxys if I was going to go that way. But
can I just give Double Punch a bit of a shout out? Because what I think while I personally, if I was doing Hypno, would probably run Sideshock, Shadow Ball. Double Punch lets you do really cool things. Like it lets you throw the Thunder Punch versus the Altaria, and then it shields the Ice Punch. Then it isn't going to shield the next one, and then you down it with an Ice Punch. You do the inverse versus Pelipper. Or you could do that with Fire Punches against Bug Seals. Double Punch, like if you're looking for Hypno to fill a crack, as young Cal was saying about the ducting. I think double punch Hypno as a crack filling one is, in my mind, much more efficient. Like it makes it that specialized mon, doesn't it? But then you go back to the issues I was saying earlier about not having the Sideshock. I think Sideshock is really important. Fair enough.
Maybe.
Okay. Go on, Dan. Were you going to say something?
No. I said earlier that I felt if you were running the Shadow, I felt Double Punch was there. I mean, I've not done it to the level of Callum with Sims and stuff like that. It just always feels the way forward just because if you're against a Mew, and I know you said being able to hit the Shadow Ball against a Mew, but are you going to get there? Is my concern.
In regards to the other Psychic types, right? How many of them beat Hypno?
Not a lot.
It's a good
Mew.
Other than Mew, which Hypno beats in the zeros.
Oranguru is fairly clear cut.
There was a couple last season where
Oranguru
was massive. What was that one? Oranguru was huge. Forged.
Yeah.
There was. I remember seeing it. There's a way to beat Oranguru with Shadow Hypno in the twos. Like straight punch.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I also think while we're talking about Shadow Psychic Pokemon, I also think a Alolan Raichu is worth a shout out. It's not a confusion use; it doesn't really do much psychic damage, but Alolan Raichu is always.
And there's the bingo checklist. Brewer mentions Alolan Raichu when it's legal.
Great mom, really, really good mom, really good mom. Yeah, but other than that, unless anyone has any other thoughts on Hypno or psychic type as well, because we've all picked different type ones tonight. For the most part, I know. Well, yeah, Young Callum had a slight overlap, but
just run Hypno.
Everyone run Hypno because Mew is number 1 on PV Poke, and you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Wobbuffet has charm. Do what you will with that information.
You know, Jan's just woken up in a sweat somewhere, going, "What's going on?"
It's been hibernating in PvP hibernation for 8 months or whatever. And cats just. Okay, so I'm up next. My pick is Cal. Did you give a Pokedex number?
He did.
He did. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I apologize. Mine is number 212, which is Scizor. And I'm specifically speaking about the Shadow version here. So I, as I was saying earlier about the bulk on the bulky nature of this meta and why Side Shot might be helpful. Shadow Hypno, specifically with Bullet Punch, Night Slash, and then Iron Head as well. I would go Iron Head because it's nice to have that stab move, same as Slash, right? Beats a lot of or has win cons, has even shield win cons against a lot of the bulky things in this meta.
Since when did Shadow Hypno have these moves?
Am I talking about Shadow Hypno still? Oh, okay. My bad. Shadow Scizor has Night Slash, Bullet Punch, and Iron Head. So just against rank ones, I don't normally like listing matchups, but I've picked out the top 5 mons on the PV Poke rankings, right? You beat Mew in the ones. It's a fairly narrow 0 shield loss, but Mew will be debuffed after that. There's ways to play around that. You beat a rank 1 Altaria in the ones. You beat a rank 1 Walring, even if it's baiting in the 1s and 2s. You beat a rank 1 Shadow Walring in all 3 even shields matchups, even if it's baiting. Jellicent, if it's going straight Shadow Ball, you beat in the 1s and 2s. If it's going straight Double Beam, you wins in the 0s and 1s. So Jellicent has to get its moves right to beat you, because you're getting fast enough to those Night Slashes and you're even enough damage. Thunderbolt Miltank, Thunderbolt being the only move that's charge move that Miltank has that isn't resisted by Scizor. You beat in the 1s and 2s, and even beat it at a 1 shield disadvantage in the 1s to the 2s. And Greedent has to bait to beat you in the 1s and 2s. So you've got a lot of good coverage for some of the very, very bulky top meta mons here. And I know there's not many good 0 shields matchups for Scizor, which is noticeable. In a meta full of bulky mons, when you're using bulky mons, you tend not to shield early game. So if you keep Scizor to the end, it's kind of fairly likely to some extent that you can hold 2 shields or hold 1 shield and end up in the last matchup being a 1 shield matchup, which is where Scizor sort of thrives. Also notable.
I mean, all the things that you said it beats, though, were all things that people tend to use as a lead.
Well, use Scizor as a lead then. But like all these things I also said, like you could see them being used in a line of 3.
Maybe.
So no matter where Scizor ends up, it's going to do a bit of damage. And yeah, it's got really, really strong coverage. And I don't necessarily know that it's important to have a bug steal here. I don't think it is particularly important. But what I like about it now as a bug steal is the fact that it's not walled by Jellicent. It can damage Altaria, that sort of thing. And I think, as I was saying about Bronzong, I think the steel typing is really handy here. So it's certainly something I'll be considering for sure. Yeah, I'll open the floor.
I agree with you about the steel typing being really strong here. I think it's got a nice place. When I'd originally looked at 6, I'd looked more towards the Bronzong than anything else. Mainly because I think the water flyers are going to have I think they're going to be prevalent again, whether it be the dreaded mantine or the toilet duck. We are going to toilet bird, toilet duck.
Yeah.
Does the
Yeah.
toilet bird not beat Bronzong now?
No, the
No,
toilet
it's
bird
wicked
doesn't
well.
beat Bronzong.
I wouldn't have thought so.
No?
Doesn't beat Bronzong. Beats Hypno, but doesn't beat Bronzong. Does, mate, does.
It's a close
Actually-
matchup.
Actually, it doesn't beat Hypno.
Damn it.
maybe it doesn't beat your Hypno. Maybe it beats Dan's Hypno with, I don't know, 5 punch ice punch, maybe. But,
Mine's just got ice punch on its own.
okay. Apologies. Yeah.
Why not?
But yeah, I do think it's really important to have a steal here. I think, the moves that are, you get a night slash through and you get a boost, and suddenly then bullet punches start to really hurt. And, there's not a lot of things that do want to just take boosted bullet punches in this meta, particularly when, and again, the resistances are great. I've got sidetracked on my point, sorry. Cal, what were you going to say?
Which cow?
Young
Yeah,
Cal.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think even if you don't necessarily like how Sizzle plays, even if you don't like using it as a mon, I know there's a lot of people who, if it's not bulky, they won't use it for a lot of Pokemon. Sizzle is in this interesting place where there's nothing that can take its role, in that almost all steel types rely on their defensive capabilities, sitting back, tanking moves, slowly battle of attrition with the opposing Pokemon. There's no other steel types really in this meta that can truly snowball in a way that Sizzle can, especially with the potential for boosts. I've seen Shadow Sizzles ruin careers with getting an early boost. If you boost with your first Night Slash, this thing could easily break apart an Altaria Jellicent core, which I personally think are going to be nearly everywhere with how bulky and accessible and generally strong they are and how good of a core they form. And it's really interesting to where Steel is usually such a bad type offensively, but other than the waters and say there are a few electrics sort of knocking about and opposing steels, but if you lock it in against, say, a normal type or an opposing bug, or particularly the dragons, which are doing resisted back, rather than Sizzle using its steel typing to slowly chip away, it's there to just live by about 1 HP, win the matchup, let you win switch, and get out of it. So I think it's a really interesting one, which if your team needs a Sizzle, you're going to be hard pressed to use anything else to fill that role, I imagine.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I couldn't find. I don't think I'd be able to find a bulkier alternative. And I think on the Dragon matchup as well, like obviously it is really flimsy, so Dragon Breath will still hurt. And I can see people not wanting to use Altaria here because of the double ice weakness. And then when you think about what the next, or certainly when I was trying to find a dragon that was perhaps next in line almost in this meta, my thought process came around to Gudra. And with Muddy Water and Power Whip, those charge moves that really aren't going to pressure you into shielding back. Certainly not in the same way that Sky Attack would from Altaria. So yes,
And you never get, even if you were running a Draco, you won't get there, would you?
I wouldn't have thought so. Certainly not before the Gudra had to shield. So
Gudra is the worst dragon that's ever existed.
it's
Wash
not
your
very-
mouth out. Wash your mouth out.
Jesus, that is the worst opinion I've heard all week.
I like my dragon stuff
Awful.
have fast charge moves. So I would lean towards that opinion, Cal. But I would lean towards it if you like. But
Yeah,
it's nice to be able to beat Walrein in zeros. But if the Walrein shields, it farms you down and you're in all sorts of trouble. So
Just go combo, close combat, end of story. Done. Goodbye.
you'd like that, wouldn't you, Mr. Confusion? You would. You'd be a big fan of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Go on, Dan. Have you? Has your point come back to you, Dan?
no, I'm just completely now just annoyed about the Gudra thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think Gudra offers. I think even here it offers a certain amount of play. Power Whip's a good move. I mean, it catches things off guard. When you're going to have a prevalence of waters about, like, you are going to hear, whether you like it or not, you are going to see wall range, you are going to see toilet ducks, you are going to see mantines and things like that. Having that Power Whip is great. And the Muddy Water bait it's a decent bait because it's fairly cheap. So you can get that bait and then still get to a Power Whip before you're being taken down. So I think you're wrong there. I think a lot of dragons rely just on their brute strength and nothing else, and they don't have a lot of flexibility. I know we've had move changes recently, and Dragonite's got other moves, and Dragonair has got other moves, but that's quite new. Before that, I think Gudra's got more versatility than other dragons. Sorry, I had to stick up for Gudra there. Really felt a need to stick up for Gudra.
Keep doing it. I love Gudra. Great mon.
No, it definitely has plus sides. There are there are things which only Gudra can do. That's for sure.
And when the Hisuian one comes out, you're all going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah,
completely different story.
Yeah. Welsh Cap, do you have any thoughts on?
Caesar, all I can think of is Caesar is watching Dan in factions in Ultra League, week in, week out, with his trusty Caesar. Beautiful man. Love it. Absolutely love it.
And I feel like a lot of people have one built as well because some of the YouTube people and Twitchy people have used it in, is it Halloween Cup and GBL?
Yeah.
All the time leading in GBL in Halloween Cup. So it's not one of those. I feel like Shadow Cycle has been out for a very long time now, and most serious and half serious PvP players probably have a Scyther or a Scizor that they've got rid of return on, got rid of frustration on. So yeah, I feel like it's fairly accessible at that point as well. 3 minutes left before the Zoom call ends. Young Cal, you had a different book steer that you have some nice thoughts about. Just quickly.
Duran. And the only reason I was really drawn to it was the fact that it had some really interesting wins. Like, it could win the zeros with Altaria with Stone Edge. Because it's as a bug steal, a lot of them are really weak to the flyers. You've got the Escav, which is absolutely walled by it. You've got Wormadam, which isn't as bad, but against specifically the water flyers, which are going to be nearly everywhere, you're completely walled with your movesets unless you go Psybeam. And then, say, Scizor, for example, it can hit back with Night Slashes if you get a boost. That's quite big. But outside of that, it's still middling compared to the bulkier water flyers like Mantine. Like, even with some boosts, you're probably going to struggle to power through that. So when you look at all the things walled by flyers, the ability to suddenly surprise it is quite big, especially with the fact that Durant's not really common. It hasn't really seen any sort of light in the day in any previous metas. It's had very fringe usage before. You're probably going to catch someone not fully experienced in Pokemon off guard because it's a very niche mon to know the moveset of. So it's really got to be someone who's been around for a while to know that it's, say, Stone Edge. And even you could run the X's at Ironhead if you don't feel the need for Stone Edge, which takes a while to get to. But Bug Bite is a Lick clone, and it's a Water Gun clone. And we always say about how good those moves are. is held back by
Especially
being a
when
bug type
stab.
fast move.
Especially when
Yeah,
stab.
especially when stab. And Durant's attack stat is quite high. It's not quite an Escav.
His
But
defense is quite low though. It's doesn't like
Yeah,
you know.
it's from the Scizor school of bug steel types, that's for sure.
yeah, entirely different camp, but it has interesting wins against, say, the Laprases and the Walreins, where that steel typing really comes in handy. And yeah, I think it's got a small niche. Run it, catch someone off guard, get a game, never bring it again.
Yeah, you've got me thinking now, Cal. Actually, if Bernie ever gets a shadow form, like return, Wormwood and Trash might really.
It'll be good.
Stop it.
It'll be really good.
Being
that'll be absolutely dirty.
Yeah.
Just Shadow Wormwood Trash would just be horrible to play against.
Yeah. So on this sort of subject of bugs, we'll move over to the world's leading authority on bug type Pokemon. So that is Young Cal.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce everybody to Pokemon number 737, the Boeing itself, Charger Bug, the battery Pokemon. And before I delve into all my bug type rants of how much I love the worst type in the game, I want to just very, very quickly talk about some ones you'll expect to see everywhere. And there's Mew, which everyone has at least one Mew. Has Cal dropped out?
Yeah, but he'll come back in, I'm sure. So, yeah.
No worries then.
Makes it less confusing now when we say Cal, though. So that's
true. Maybe an upside.
And I don't edit, so if you don't get back in, you don't get back in. Go on, as you work out.
There's Jellicent, which with the banning of dark types and with very few opposing those types is going to be very prominent. Then you've got the normal type safe swaps, which are just very neutral in the game. They were added to give a bit more consistency. And then you've got things like Pelipper, Walrein, which are these sort of GBL classics, which everyone has. And so they're going to see usage even if they're not particularly good, for example. And Charger Bug is in a very good position where it's just bulky enough and it's just got the right moveset to be able to beat all of these. And I'd argue it's one of the better Mew answers in the game because Mew has the capability to run almost anything from, say, Rock Slide to Flame Charge to Surf to Wild Charge to Dragon Claw to Overheat, all these ridiculous things. And Charger Bug is in the bulkier side of the bug camp to where it can actually live, say, a stray Rock Slide or a stray neutral move, which most of the others, say, like Durant and the Escab certainly couldn't. And I quite like its Jellicent matchup too, where it's not necessarily too overbearing, but it just chips away with some nice neutral damage. It can guarantee your switch. And if you're not a big fan of X-Scissor, you can use Crunch, which although it's slightly more expensive, it's actually usually the same damage per energy against, say, psychic types because it's a much better move.
Did you say it had Crunch?
Yeah, Charge Bug has Crunch. So along with Discharge, which is a serviceable move, it's certainly not bad. Then X-Scissor, you can sort of meet it to fit your needs. It's not going to be good against Altaria. You've got the neutral electric damage versus the neutral Dragon Breath and Sky Attack. It's just a completely realm out. And it hasn't got the grass coverage, unfortunately. So it will be walled by a lot of, say, the Mud Boys. But given how many good flyers and how many good dragons and how many good sort of water ices there are, I don't think they're going to be quite as popular as they usually tend to be. And Charge Bug, it's a nice stat product. I mean, I just said it's bulky. It's not truly bulky, but it's in the region of, say, a Great League Milotic, a Great League Gastrodon, and even close to things like Quagsire and Tentacruel. So it's got enough to really take what it just needs to take. And with Mew almost guaranteed to go Wild Charge and one of, say, Dragon Claw or Surf or something else which hits neutral dragon types, it's just going to do a really nice job of just sitting on it, bouncing away as its little bug self, moving like a little bus. And I think it's just going to make you happy when you look at it. So that's why I'm talking about it.
I could see when you said bouncing away like a little bus, that makes you really happy.
I just love seeing it. That's the real reason I spoke about it today.
when Matt spoke to me earlier and he said about crossover between the mons that were picked tonight, and he said Charger Bug and Sizzle or Sizzle, Sizzle.
I say Sizzle, yeah.
I normally say Sizzle, but I don't know why I said Sizzle then. I don't. Anyway, beside the point. I generally think of Charger Bug as an electric, and I think of Sizzle, Sizzle.
As a
Can't
steel.
get my words out. It's gone. As a steel type, I don't think of them as the same. I don't really class them as a bug.
I think
And
you're
as you
right.
said, you've got so many water flyers here that electric damage is actually going to be really, really, really viable, especially ones that can hit against psychic types as well. That's really nice. You know, as you said, you've got that Exisal there that you've got there. I didn't know it had crunch, which is, you know, it's kind of nice that. I think you've only got like 5 electric types in total, with Rotom being one of them, you know, Volt,
Chinchou.
Vikavolt, Chinchou, Raichu, and that's it.
Anything else.
And you outbulk them. It's really good in the mirror matches with electric. Say Raichu or Alolan Raichu spoke very briefly about how big of a playmaker that seems. Completely hard counters it.
In my initial sort of team build, I'd looked at because I was looking at a different bug. I was looking at which another Pokemon I can't say the name of, Gospel. Anyway, and because I'd looked at that had Shadow Claw, and I was thinking of running Mew with Volt Switch as my electric coverage to sort of turning it on its head and stuff like that. But you know, am I taking 2 mons here to do a job where I could have Charger Bug doing quite a lot of that for me? So it's given me some thought just already with the little bits you've said, mate. Yeah. How bulky?
Oh,
because you said it was bulky as Quag.
I'm gonna touch on this because to like. Go on, sorry, Carl.
I was just going to say it's a bit lower than Quag, but it's in the realm of Great League Milotic, Great League Gastrodon, and close to Quag, just slightly under.
So my measure of sort of bulk for bug types. Oh, Callum's got it. Must be bad internet in Wales. I don't necessarily like to think of, unless something's supremely bulky or supremely fragile. I don't necessarily know that its actual bulk is worth much. I like to think of it in terms of what can't it beat that it should be able to, or what can it beat that it can't. And for bug types that a lot of, especially ones that don't use bug bite as a fast move, one of the sort of bars I set is, can it beat Umbreon? Because when you think back to something like Obsidian Cup, when people were running Poison Jab Beedrill and assuming because it's a bug it'll outdamage Umbreon, well, it doesn't. Charger Bug is bulky enough to beat Umbreon in all evens with. Is it Spark it gets, Cal?
It gets Spark, and it does get Bug Bite, but you don't run it.
No, you don't run Bug Bite, yeah. But yeah, between Spark and Ecstasy, you're beating Umbreon. Not that Umbreon's in this cup, obviously, but it's that level of bulk. It's a mod that's that level of bulk
that's really impressive to be.
It is, isn't it? Right?
You know, that's like we've talked about on chatting shit before how Umbreon's your third shield. You know, you just stick. I think it was Matt that said a couple of weeks ago after a Great League practice, Umbreon is officially the greatest Great League Pokemon there is out there.
In my mind, it's the best open Great League mod out there at the minute, isn't it? But,
and Charger Bug, even say the bulky normals, it's like 494 in the ones and stuff like that. There
you go. Yeah, it's between its bulk and its spam. It's those two that work together that make it good. Yeah, it's not bulky enough to run the moveset that you might get on the Trash Wormadam. He's off again. Yeah, it's not bulky enough to pull off that kind of move.
It's not his pick. He doesn't care. He's just doing it on purpose. He's like, we're not talking about anything interesting. I'll come back at Dan's pick.
Yeah, they're talking about things that can be hit now. Yeah.
Question. So I have a charge bug. I've not built. I've put a little
Why?
bit of. It started really low, Cal. I've got to be honest, it was low CB. It's 499, rank 499. Do you need a particular stat product for it to be good? Is it something that actually you're looking for the rank one, otherwise really you're wasting your time with it? Or can, for instance, my 7, 15, 14.
What are your IVs, Dan?
7, 15, 14.
Sorry, yeah, my bad. 7, 15, 14. I'm just gonna say when you're still beating Mew or not. You're still beating Mew, so as far as I'm concerned, that's fine.
Really, that's the big thing it's here for. As a roughly
That's its job.
Yeah.
Actually, the rank 1 doesn't beat you in the 2s, so
Better.
you're hitting a spark. You're hitting a spark breakpoint versus Mew, Dan. With that.
You know what?
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? That sparks all sorts of joy, that.
Yeah, get it built, lad.
It's only 180k dust. Who needs that?
It was worth it. It was worth it. Trust me. I've spent my dust on some terrible, terrible things. It's worth it.
Yet you still haven't built an Ultra League Dunsparce.
I'm trying. I am in the process.
So you don't need a particularly great stat product to be able to. The reason I ask is because, like me, I imagine a lot of people who are going to be watching this are going to be, I've not got a charger bug, and they've probably got a Volca
Yeah.
Terrible.
but they've probably got one of them built because people like filling the decks. Do you know what I mean? People do. So they'll probably skipped over charger bug completely because it looks like a teeny tiny battery bus. So yeah, I just was curious what kind of product you'd need to be able to do that. Because maybe
probably 2 shots a lot more things, but it will die to pretty much everything. I think with charger bug, it's in the sort of region where, like Brewer just mentioned, you get like the spark point on Mew. And I think it's a very average mon stat wise. It's not bad. It's not a glass cannon. It's not a bulky tank. I think there's probably, I imagine, I haven't checked, I haven't looked into it, but I imagine there's probably not much to lose out on. It's probably one of those mons where the IVs don't matter as much as they do for other things. But it sounds like your spread is better. It sounds like your spread is better than the rank 1, so why not use it?
Regardless, it beats Hypno, so that's the main thing that we've been talking about for the last few minutes.
Okay, go on. While you're here, Cal, have you got any thoughts on Bikeable? The premium electric bug.
Not Bikeable, charge bug.
That's the one, charge bug.
That was my question. Is it better than Bikeable? Considerably, I would imagine.
Considerably.
Unless you're wanting the mud slap user to hit the bronze on. That sort of thing, but that's the kind of niche, isn't it? Right?
No, I like it. I've got a nice high rank one, so I think it's quite good.
Well, while you were away, Cal, we discovered that there is a spark breakpoint versus Mew, so worth checking that you're
Check them out.
yeah, worth checking, and it flips the 2s, so worth checking. Any further thoughts on charger book?
It's cute.
Yeah. No,
and that's the most important thing, cuteness.
That's it. It's not about winning, it's about winning with cuteness. That's the way to do these things. Go on then, Dan. Do you know what? I haven't read the chat, so I'm still not entirely sure which one you're choosing here. So
I'm going with the bovine Pokemon. And it is Pokedex 241, and that is Miltank. I was really conflicted whether to look at Greedent or Miltank here today, because I do think you're looking at one or the other. I don't think, if I was going to run 2 normals, I'd be running Snorlax with one of these 2, to be honest. And that would be because then I'd have the superpower. Do you know what I mean? And I'd also have the lick damage. That was sort of my logic. I would run either Miltank or Greedent. I've chosen Miltank because I think it's slightly more versatile. I think the rollout is good against the flyers and things like that, and also it's got to play against the bugs and things like that, which I know your charge moves are not really doing anything, and I know rollout's not that much of a hard hitting move, but if you can get in there, get a few rollouts, do a little bit of chip damage, build up a body slam, drop out, or build up a thunderbolt, so you've got 1.5 body slams, is it? One and the 2/3 body slams. You can then switch out, and then you've got that energy banks, and you'll be able to switch into something else and do some damage there. The thing with the normals is certainly Greedent and Miltank is they're reliable, they're steady, they're not. Do you know what? You could look at all the shield scenarios, and they're probably all the same. Whether it's 1, 2s, or 3s, 0s, 1s, or 2s, doesn't make a difference. You're beating the same amount of stuff with it. It really does what it does, and that's about it. Bulk's going to be important here. It's a bulky cup, to be honest. There's a lot of bulk in the meta itself, but I think there's some frail stuff that does a lot of damage. And as I said earlier, I'd look to. I'm going to try it. Golispod. Anyway,
that'll do.
Glycopod. Is that what you said? Glycopod. Of course, you know what it is. It's a bug. But I looked at that, which is incredibly frail. But I liked the fact it beat Jellicent. I like the fact it beat Mew. I like the fact it did a job against Hypno and things like that. So I was really kind of keen to utilize that sort of error, where I know I'm going to have to pump shields into it, because that does require 2 shields. So I needed other things in my team that didn't necessarily require them shields, just to sort of get myself a balance, which is where the normals came in place. I could tell you about what it beats if you want, but I think everyone knows what it beats and knows what it loses to. You're coming up against a Bronzong, you're doing nothing. But if you are getting up against a Mantine, a Pelipper, a Gyarados, a Mew, you're going to hurt it, which is nice, and it does its job there and has its little place and niche.
Can I just quickly, I'm sure we have the same rationale here, because I think the moves that you've mentioned is what I would run in Miltank as well. But Thunderbolt versus Ice Beam.
I think you get 4 more wins with Thunderbolt, if I remember correctly, in the 1 shields, which is why I looked more towards Thunderbolt. And also, you've got Wall Raid on your team, so why do you need Ice Beam? Because you've got your Premier Ice type.
My thinking on that was if I'm running Ice Beam on Miltank, then all of a sudden I'm in normal cycle, it doesn't beat Jellicent, because I'll probably be worn down by bubble teams while I'm trying to chip away at it, roll out the body slam.
Just keep on it. At that point, you might as well just keep on hitting them rollouts, to be honest. Because
it's bank the energy. Yeah. So I think that's a really important thing to know with Miltank here. I don't know whether it's the recommended mix in the ball. I'll take a quick look, but
I think it is. I think it will be. I really hadn't considered Ice Beam. Similarly, I hadn't considered Gyro Ball either. Just because I don't. Yeah.
What about tackle? Both a rollout.
Yeah, I could.
Same question to Greedent, I suppose.
It's a good point.
I don't think it's the same question as with Greedent. I think isn't rollout you get more energy for it, you get more back.
I think rollout and bullet seed are about the same, right? There's still 3 to a body slam, I think. So
I think tackle is 3 energy per turn, and rollout is 4 1/3. But then the damage from tackle is significantly more. But when I see it as a mon you're bringing to beat Jellicent. So the tackle doesn't really register as much.
Do it. Yeah.
Whereas, in the same with Greedent. I mean, you have got Crunch on Greedent, same as Thunderbolt, but you're not getting to them particularly fast if you've got.
I imagine it completely bodies the mirror, though, right?
You'd have thought so.
Yes, the tackle would win in the mirror, I'd imagine.
one-turn fast moves against Pokemons are pretty handy usually. So that's we mentioned the bulkier normal types. There are some normal types in this cup that haven't been sort of dropped in. We mentioned the Rangaroo earlier. I just want to draw your attention to Giraffary, which has a double kick Psychic Fangs Thunderbolt. Not a Pokemon in the slightest. I think, and then Altarius there, fine. You're going to lose to the bulk of Altaria. You're going to lose to, you're probably going to lose to Hypno there, but just relying on Thunderbolt damage. But there's something to be said for that moveset of double kick Psychic Fangs.
I think it will make a very interesting ABB with Oranguru.
Can you imagine Shadow Giraffaric confusion with Psychic Fangs? You hit a Psychic Fangs and surely them confusions then he's sort of doing Hypno level damages to something, you know what I mean? It's like really pushing it out there with how much that'll hurt.
I don't think there's much of an argument to be made, but I think it's worth drawing the attention to it because just what we're talking about normal types. Like I mentioned, it's a bulky cup, and like with Scizor, it's a monster on the extreme end of the frailty spectrum, right? And I think if you're going to run something that isn't bulky here, you probably need to be massively frail if you want to be able to successfully farm something down, and really benefit off that. Which is, to be honest, where I think, as much as charging works, I know it can come from charge work. I know it's got that nice level of bulk, but I wonder between it being that middle in the stat products, being not frail but not bulky, and then having spark, I wonder whether just the style of this cup really being so bulky, whether that might hold charge book back as much as anything else. But I think Giraffaric, I think it's far enough down the frailty spectrum to be usable, if not good. Sorry. So, what were we speaking? What were we on? Miltank, yes.
Yeah, we completely left Milton. You started gushing over Charger Bug again. Just want to point out Miltank beats Charger Bug quite easily, but we digress.
Either of the Cals about Miltank thoughts.
I would
Which
rather
one's
just
good?
run Shadow Snorlax.
Would you rather run Shadow Snorlax?
If I was going to have a normal type.
And what are you really doing against them flyers?
Body
I mean,
lick.
You're coming into that Jellicent match, you're just going to lick it to death and
Even well, pretty much. Just keep licking. Shadow lick. Away you go.
The shadow argument is really interesting here because for many Pokemon that have shadow eligible on them, the shadows are so much further down the rankings than. I mean, I've just looked now. I think Shadow Snorlax has evaded being on the rankings somehow. So it's either really, really bad or it's got lost in the coding somewhere. But
Well, surely it wouldn't be worse than, say, Cloyster or Marshtomp.
Yeah, well, yes, it must have got lost in the It must have got lost in the rankings, right? But yeah, it's not on there. But again, it's one of those. It's a bulky cup. I don't know that on many things. I don't know whether the shadows help him. Like there aren't. So Dragonite has a better shadow on the rankings. Gyarados has a better shadow on the rankings. Dragonair has a better shadow on the rankings. That's about it.
It's only really the really high attack weighted Pokemon.
Yeah, and I don't think Snorlax really fits into that.
Mewtwo Shadow is rated higher for the 3 people that are going to use it this cup.
Yeah,
but you can't get a Mewtwo.
Oh, of course you can't. Yeah, of course you can't. Sorry, stupid from me.
Okay, so Shadow Snorlax in the One Shields has 25 wins as the normal. I think the normal only has 19, you know. Then that's just on the one shields against the Naiad Cup.
I could see.
Yeah, 18 wins. So
Yeah.
the Shadow has more wins in the one shield.
I could see if it reaches lit breakpoints versus psychics and indeed Chelsea, I can see how that might be really handy. Yeah, I wonder.
I mean, Cal, you missed it earlier. I said I'd run it with a Snorlax, just to say. Not a shadow, but I was saying why you wouldn't run if you were running double normal. That would be the way you would go. Would be Snorlax with Miltank rather than Snorlax with Greedent.
There's lots of good shadows here. Lots of good shadows.
I think a lot of the shadows actually rank very closely to their non-shadow counterparts. So I think once you decide that you want a Lapras or a Snorlax, I think you then look at the matchup differences and choose which suits you.
Yes, there's some Pokemon I think where the shadow, even if it ranks lower, it's still infinitely better than the non-shadow in my opinion.
Exactly.
Lapras as well.
Yeah. Well, this is it.
Lapras. Yeah.
Yeah, Lapras, I would tend to agree, but then the regular ranks higher. But it's a close one. I'm not saying that ranking matters in the slightest, really. But it's interesting because you're right, often the shadows do. Yeah, it's interesting. Sure. I just wonder whether it's that because it's such a bulky cup. And when you think of the shadows that are eligible here, things like Hypno, Lapras, Walrein, these aren't often the things that benefit from being shadows are like the middling things that don't really hit hard enough to one-shot things. And then the extra damage boost into the one-shot things. And we don't really have anything like that here. Which is...
Do you think because there is so much bulk, though, there is room to add balance in that and bring a shadow because
Certainly.
the rest of your team has the extra bulk?
Possibly. Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, I think it's just like I say, I think it's about picking your team first, rather than just looking at where the weak spots are. And if the shadow matchups improve or make worse, that's what I'd say. I tend to agree with Cal, really, that there are some ones that are much better with shadows. But it's just an observation that the rankings are very close, which is unusual.
You know what you should do, Cal? You should run all shadows. All shadows. You could make it like a gimmick around yourself. And you could just be like, I only run shadows from now on. That'd probably be a really cool thing.
He'd be the first person to do that.
He probably would. I mean, Callum of Shadow. It's got a nice ring to it.
Yes.
It's original. Super original.
Shepherd of Shadows. That's the
Shepherd of Shadows.
That's brilliant.
Absolutely.
That's going to be his alt account in a minute. There's going to be a new British Sylph player coming up the ranking soon.
Yeah, Shepherd of Shadows. Nice. Like it.
That's the most sensible thing I've said all night. That's cool. Well, unless anyone's got any thoughts on anything we've discussed or anything they want to add about anything we've not discussed, I feel like we've touched on a lot of stuff that's going to be meta here.
I've got a couple of things I wanted to say. Okay. Where's the fish tank? Why is that cupboard open?
So the fish tank is in the other room, and I've been working this afternoon, and so I've just not moved into the fish tank. The cupboard is the electrical box thing. I don't really know the technical word.
Why is there a cable coming out of the door?
It's called a dry riser, by the way.
Okay. Well, the cable coming out the door is the link to the Wi-Fi down there. And
that looks some really well laid floor, that man.
Oh, you don't
really well laid.
That the people that laid the flooring the guy that laid the flooring was a top bloke, and he was really good. Yeah. Yeah. And so the reason it's not shut properly is because I'm yet to drill a little hole somewhere. I'm hovering my mouse over the corners of the door to try and feed the wire through. I'm yet to drill, and obviously you can't see where my mouse is on the screen. I'm going to try and. What I'd like to do is drill a hole. Hang on, this is a weird angle. This isn't helping me here. There we go. I'd like to drill a hole here. A slight one in the door. Just like a like a cap flap for the wire to come out of.
Right. I'm going to tell you, you
Why
can't
don't you
do that.
drill
You
a
shouldn't
hole underneath?
drill a hole underneath. If you drill a hole in that door, the reason dry risers are the way they are is because of protection from it. I mean, Callum's an electrician, he'll tell you, but you shouldn't mess about with the door and a dry riser.
When did this become a DIY SOS episode?
You can see how much DIY
Sorry, I
I've done.
care. Do you know what I mean?
You can see how much DIY I've done because I took the electrical box off. I painted before I took the electrical box off there. And I've not painted yet. And I've still not put sockets over there. Hang on. Right, let's figure this out. That way. I still not put actual socket covers over the sockets. Right, I've been in this house about 6 months now. And there isn't a socket in the house or a light switch in the house that's covered.
Yeah, he's got 2 fish tanks.
Priorities.
You gotta get the priorities right. Yeah, this is it, exactly. Yeah. Some things spark joy, some don't. Some just spark, right? That's
I'm a background charger bug. The Premier Electric type of pickup.
all right, Alice. Well, most of any other DIY advice people want to give me, I am genuinely all interested in that. So, yeah.
I'll leave it in the comments.
Yeah. Cal, if you want to teach me how to fit a light switch, I'm all open for that.
Drop me a message, mate. Drop me a message.
Sounds good to me. Guys, thank you so much for chatting. It's been
Thanks for having us, Matt.
really looking forward to the next cup.
Yeah, definitely.
Roll on the Naiad. Can't wait.